Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily with Ray Flowers, Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget to use the promo code FSD20 for a 20% discount on the products over at fantasyguru.com. Hey everybody, Ray Flowers here of fantasyguru.com. As you heard on the promo, welcome to the show today. It is Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com. Got a big show today. Looking forward to it. A little bit different than what we've been doing. Nah, it's the same thing. I could be making things up and saying it's wow and spectacular, but it's really not. It's basically the same thing. What we're doing is we're going to have a lot of fun. And part of that fun will include some baseball talk and the start of the football portion of what we're doing here at fantasyguru.com. So here's the plan for today. We're going to talk a little bit at the top about MLB's gambling issues just to get it out there and deal with it. I don't want to ignore it. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but we'll talk about it a little bit. We talked about it yesterday as well, I think on the show, maybe it was Monday. Then we're going to talk about who is Corbin Carroll. We haven't done this much, but we're going to do a deep dive on Corbin Carroll. I ran a poll on Twitter X at the Ray Flowers, and I asked people, what are your thoughts on Corbin Carroll? And we'll share those thoughts, and I'll give some more in-depth analysis as to what is going on with his struggles. Vlad Guerrero as well, and Taijuan Walker. As you can see there, I really wanted to talk about Corbin Carroll because I listed him twice. For those of you watching on the screen, you can obviously see us at youtube.com live, youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork. You can also see us live on Facebook, and that's facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ. Ask your questions there. We'll get to those at the end of the show today. Leave your comments too. Then a whole slew of injury guys, and you can see it. I mean, just cavalcade of guys. Luis Robert, who returned last night. Tommy Pham, Wilyer Abreu, Masahiro Tanaka, Evan Carter, Ranger Suarez, Max Scherzer, Cristian Javier, Tyler Mahle, Robert Gasser, Jack Flaherty, Edwin Diaz, Andres Munoz, and Cade Horton. So a lot of guys will go through kind of updates on where those guys are at. And then we've got Armando Marsal joining us. Today we're starting our football week. Armando will be on Wednesdays. Tyler Beaker will be on Thursdays. Russell Clay will be on Fridays. So these guys will be on the rest of through football season, hopefully, each week coming on about 30 minutes into the show. So we'll talk to Armando in about a half hour. This week is going to be quarterback week. Obviously next week, running back, then wide receiver, then tight end. So we're going to spend each of the next 4 weeks kind of helping everyone get accustomed to what's going on. Maybe you didn't pay great attention to the draft, or you're not in a dynasty or keeper league, so you haven't even started drafting yet. We'll talk about the positions here, starting with quarterback this week. We'll discuss Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Brock Purdy, and Jared Goff with Armando. As you can see there on the ticker on the bottom of the screen, I am Ray Flowers. This is Fantasy Sports Daily. You can type that into your favorite podcast network and find us there. You can also find us at the website. Click the Elite Plus tab at the top for fantasyguru.com. Go a little bit higher on the website. Go to the right-hand side and click the subscribe tab because the fantasy football product is live. Armando, Tyler, Russell, the entire crew, Jeff Mans, Ted Schuster, myself, everybody is getting ready for the release of everything that we have to do and share with you this season for fantasy football, and it's substantial. So that's available right now at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab at the top of the page. You can get everything that you're about ready to see here on the screen, and there it is. The rookie player profiles, the coaching and system breakdowns, the offensive line breakdowns. We've got a custom scoring cheat sheet system. Mock draft and draft simulator. If you want to run a mock draft, you can do that. We've got the auction draft book. In fact, we'll have many draft books, including ones by Armando, Tyler, and Russell. IDP projections, cheat sheets, Superflex chart, the 24/7 Discord room where you can ask all your questions, not just in season, start them, sit them, but right now as you're getting ready for your draft and all that. And then the weekly live stream that the guys do on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock Eastern. You get access to all of that. So click on the subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page and have at it. Okay, let's dive into some baseball talk here. I mentioned this on the show earlier this week, and as I noted, I wanted to bring it up just so we weren't annoying it. But Mr. Marcano has been banned for life from baseball. Baseball's in that tough spot. All the sports are, right, with the accepting of the gambling money and the pushing of the gambling money and the advertising of the gambling. And Tucupito Marcano is done for life. Hope he had a good time gambling. He's never going to play Major League Baseball again. That's not it. Jose Rodriguez, Michael Kelly, Andrew Silfrank, and Jay Groom were all suspended 1 year for violating Major League Baseball's betting policy. So one guy's gone for life, 4 guys are gone for a year. When you're at that level of player, too, if you're gone for a year, do you come back? Now, again, we talked about this, my personal position on gambling and such. I don't have a problem with gambling. I'm not an addictive personality. I just don't do it. Just stay away. I'm smart enough to use my brain. I'm also 51 years old. I've been around a long time. I've seen a lot of things. I'm not a 25-year-old athlete with disposable income. So I can't compare it directly, of course. But that's the result. Baseball's coming down hard on these guys. They should. There shouldn't be questions about and there can't be questions about the honesty of the game. We can't have conspiracy theorists running wild saying games are fixed and rigged, and we can't have that. The famous case, obviously, 1918 with the Black Sox. 8 Men Out's the movie. Justin Fenster and my co-host on Sirius XM's Elite Sports Game Time show, which is Monday through Thursday at 8 to 10 Eastern. We was talking about it last night on the show. Justin and I will be on tonight. I'll also be on with Jeff Mans today, by the way, in the Elite Sports Show. That's 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. Wednesdays are the days I'm on with him. So today's my 6 hours of talking. So that's just kind of where we're at with baseball. Let's hope this is it. I said on the show the other day, hopefully Marcano's the only guy. It wasn't. There were 4 others. But yeah, Marcano's suspended for life. Hopefully his life doesn't spiral out of control now. Hopefully he stays on the straight and narrow. What is wrong with Corbin Carroll? Let's talk some actual baseball. I ran a poll again. Let me see if I can get that a little bit bigger so everyone can see it. That didn't help. That erased me. There's Ray Flowers down in the corner. Yeah, I'll fix that in a second. From today forward, the rest of the season in a 5x5 setup, where is Corbin Carroll in terms of your thought process and his value as a hitter in the fantasy space? Was he going to be hitter 1 to 25 in a 5x5 setup the rest of the way? 13% of people said that. So very few people are holding out hope that he'll be the guy that he was drafted to be. 29% said he'd be hitter 26 to 50. 30% of people, which was the winning number, said 51 to 75. 28% said 76 or higher. But look at this. 26 to 50 overall for a hitter the rest of the way in a 5x5 setup. 26 to 50, 29.3%. 51 to 75, 29.6%. 76 plus, 28.3%. I don't remember ever running a poll that had 4 options where 3 of them were basically a point apart. And yes, I know it's 1.3, but basically a point apart. It's not that early for me that I can't do math. That's shocking, which means none of us really know. And we're all kind of just guessing as to what's going on with Corbin Carroll. And I've talked about him on the show before, but let's do a little bit of a dive here on Corbin Carroll. Let's see if we can figure out more directly what's going on with Corbin Carroll. And I've talked about his struggles to lift the baseball to his pull field, to drive the baseball and all that. So we'll get into that. But here, let's just say it very simply. I don't know if the shoulder is an issue or not. It is strange that since he hurt his shoulder last year, there's almost a direct linkage to where he started to struggle. Now, again, everyone continues to say his shoulder's okay. I don't know. Here's what I do know. He's got an issue with the fastball. And frankly, there are a lot of guys that are mistake hitters and guys that are better hitting breaking balls. We all know this. But if you can't hit a fastball, you're in trouble. Even though teams are throwing less fastballs than they used to, some teams at least. 56% of the time last season, he saw a fastball. Okay. That number in the playoffs went up to over 70%, which is a huge shift. Teams realized that he was unable to drive the baseball last year. Now, the market's pulled back a little bit this season, but remember, it was 56% of the pitches he saw last year were fastballs. This year, it's 64%, which is almost 2/3 of all the pitches. So teams, A, aren't afraid of him driving the baseball, and B, are challenging him. That's not something they did, at least at the start of last season. Last year, he had 14 home runs on fastballs with an expected slugging rate of .497. Very good numbers. This year, and again, roughly a third of the season, he has 2 home runs, putting him on pace for 6, roughly, with a .347 expected slugging percentage. 1, .497 expected slugging, all-star level. 2, .347 expected slugging percentage, you're a bench player. Let's talk about him, whether it's a fastball or not. Let's talk about the issue he's having when he is getting the ball in the air. Last year on fly balls, he had an 1150 OPS. This year on fly balls, his OPS is 365. That should be his on-base percentage. That's his OPS on fly balls. Why? Because he's not driving the ball and he's hitting lazy fly balls. Secondly, last year he had a 27% pull rate on the fly balls. This year it's 15%. So what we have in Carroll is a guy who's being challenged more with the fastball, who's not responding at all to that challenge, who is not hitting the ball deep, who is not driving the baseball at all, who is not pulling the baseball. You know, we can continue to break him down, but these are the main facts. I have to assume, given the fact, again, this is not 20 games, 30 games. We're talking about 60 games now, and we're seeing him dropped in the batting order, and he didn't even play against a lefty the other day. Like, we're seeing the Diamondbacks making this admission that this guy just isn't the guy he was last year. I talked about the fact that I was offered Corbin Carroll for multiple deals last week for Francisco Lindor and Corey Seager, and I said no in one of my leagues. Seager's been going bonkers. Lindor's picked it up. We haven't seen it with Carroll. And given this deeper dive that teams aren't afraid of pitching to Carroll, that he's not able to handle the fastball and he's not able to pull the baseball, we got a real problem here. Because remember, as we all do, I think, Corbin Carroll's 5'11", 170. And he can hit the ball out to various parts of the yard. And, Jeff Manns jokingly said last year when we saw him hit like a 430-foot home run, he's like, holy crap, right? Like, he can drive the baseball. He's not driving the baseball. And being that his game is not driving the ball 400 feet to the opposite field, right? He's got to be able to convert those balls that he hits to his pull field into significant pop. And he just is not doing that. It's just not happening. So where do we go moving forward? I mean, I said this earlier, I think it was last week when we talked about Corbin Carroll the last time. I'm hoping at this point, I'm hoping he's a league average hitter that runs. That's the best I can do right now. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he all of a sudden snaps. Maybe it's not his shoulder. Maybe it's just a mechanical thing. Maybe in 3 months, he pulls a Trey Turner from last year and we all forget the slow start and we laugh about it. He was terrible to start. Maybe. But right now it's just bad. And there are some significant issues going on with Corbin Carroll. Let's move on from that. Let's talk a little bit about Vlad Guerrero. Vlad Guerrero hit third yesterday as he's doing. His bat has really come alive. He is not driving the baseball himself. Has not been the power hitter that we see in batting practice. We have talked about that a lot on the show. But the interesting thing is he's playing third base. This 2 of 3 games he's played third base. So apparently he's picking third base back up. They're moving things around with the playing time, and that's great news if you have Vlad on your team. If you're thinking about taking Vlad next year, if he goes into next year as first base, third base eligible, that's a huge benefit. So just pointing that out, that's something that's occurring right now. He's playing third base. And by the way, as I noted with Corbin Carroll, he hit 8th in the lineup after not playing earlier as well. So it's getting rough for him. Unlike Vladimir Guerrero, who's ascending, Corbin Carroll just really not. Taijuan Walker, who's mentioned there, as we have discussed here on the show, he's staying in the rotation. He has not pitched great. He hasn't been good since he's returned. You've got Spencer Turnbull, who is great. That is, manager Rob Thompson says Taijuan Walker staying in the rotation. Again, Walker is a highly paid pitcher. Was it $18 million, something like that? He doesn't have necessarily the stuff or the makeup or the experience, kind of the trio there, of working out of the bullpen. Spencer Turnbull, who has been fantastic, is not fantastic, but he's pitched that way, but he's not fantastic. He clearly is able, or more able to, I guess is a good way to put it, to fill that swingman role than Walker is. So this is one of those scenarios where we can all be pissed off. I get it, but you have to also understand what the Phillies are trying to accomplish. And that's Walker in the rotation. Turnbull is the flex guy. We got confirmation of that from Rob Thompson. Now, if Walker goes out and has a couple of other rough outings, at some point you got to make a decision. You can't just throw a guy out there because it fits if it's not working. But that's where they're at right now. So Spencer Turnbull will continue to fill that long relief role for the Phillies at the moment. Let's get to some of the injuries. Luis Robert, and this is good news. Yay, good news after a boring, upsetting, negative first 15 minutes of the show. He returned to game action last night, hit a home run. And, here we go. And we will see how Luis Robert does. He is obviously adding back a tremendous bat and presence to an order that desperately needs it with the White Sox. Is there enough around him with this White Sox team where they can scrape together enough offense that, he can be that driving force in fantasy? Is he going to be able to score runs? Is he going to be able to drive runners in? Is it going to be an anyone on base? Anyone behind him? There's all those questions now, but he's back out there for the moment. It's a really blah lineup, as we're aware. Let's hope Robert runs, because his power speed, that's his thing, right? And that's going to have to be his thing, because I don't think the counting category numbers are going to be significant with this roster right now. So let's hope he stays healthy. There we go. I think they placed Tommy Pham. Let me verify that. I think they ended up placing Tommy Pham on the injured list, correct? Did I make that up? I think they did, right, with an ankle issue. So even the White Sox, when they're getting back, they're not, officially Tommy Pham was placed on the injured list. They're getting a guy back, they're losing a guy. Pham was one of the better hitters in the lineup, right? So losing him doesn't help Robert either. But he's back. He hit a home run last night. Let's get ready to rock and roll with Luis Robert. Tommy Pham is being placed on that injured list. Zach Deloach was called up from AAA. Nothing to get excited about there at the moment. And it's, Pham is slowed after that hot start, but still, that's a tough one, because he's been a very effective option off the waiver wire for all of us. Wilyer Abreu's got an ankle issue. He hopes that he can return after 10 days on the injured list. So he's hoping it's a short-term stay. He had an MRI that showed inflammation, but nothing structurally was wrong. So there's no surgery indicated. It doesn't sound like this is going to be a month-long thing or anything like that. But Abreu, who has been a very good platoon guy because he faces the righties, very effective in that respect, much like Tommy Pham, picked up off the waiver wire in leagues. He's going to be out for a while. We will see if he is indeed able to come back at that shortness of the 10-day stint. It's possible. He is also someone that, doesn't steal bases and such, right? That's not really his game. It's about hitting and driving the baseball and all that. So hopefully he'll be able to return from that ankle issue and be an effective offensive weapon quickly, even if he's not 100% with the ankle. Further news with the Red Sox. Alex Cora, the manager, said that Masahiro Tanaka is going to start his Masataka Yoshida, wrong guy. Masataka Yoshida, sorry, Mr. Yoshida, who's got that thumb issue, is going to start a minor league rehab assignment this weekend. So, he'll get some work in the minor leagues. Sounds possible that Abreu and Yoshida will kind of return same time-ish. The Red Sox got a solid season out of him, but his production waned through the course of the year, and they're not really happy with his defense. There's been a lot of talk of him being a full-time DH. Like, this soured kind of quickly with Yoshida. He was pretty effective last year as an offensive player, at least. But he's about ready to start his minor league rehab work, coming back from that thumb issue. If he's on your waiver wire, you make the move here-ish, right, versus waiting for him to be recalled. People start to get excited again. As we saw last year, he's a 280, 15, 75 kind of guy. So he's not a barn burner, if you will. But he's in that Alex Verdugo zone, right, of a guy that can be quite effective, even though they're not someone who's actually leading your fantasy squad. Evan Carter, man, like, we talk about the Rangers and their injuries all the time, but it's almost always on the pitching side. Though they've lost Nate Lowe at time to the injured list. They lost Wyatt Langford to the injured list. We know they lost Evan Carter to the injured list, but now we're hearing that stress reaction in his back is going to cost him at least a month. At least a month. So what, 6 weeks? Evan Carter, and this happens every year. And again, this is one of the main reasons why I always talk about rookies and say, hey, what are we doing here, folks? Evan Carter was in my top 5 this year in the rookie rankings. I think he was probably in everyone's top 5, if not their top 7, right? He was expected to be someone to challenge for the Rookie of the Year award. Great last season at the end of the year. Tremendous in the playoffs. Everyone 2020 talent, all that. He has sucked eggs when on the field, and now he's going to miss at least a month of the back issue. So, IL stint, stash, I'm totally fine with that. No IL stint, Evan Carter's out. We can't be wasting a roster spot on a guy that just hasn't got it done, and now a guy dealing with a stress reaction in his back. Long-term should be fine. This is not an issue that is anticipated to cause him long-term concerns. But short-term, poo. Ranger Suarez has got a thumb issue of his own, going back to the thumb discussion. He took a baseball off his hand last time he pitched. We all saw it. He played catch on Tuesday and felt okay. So he's going to throw a bullpen session today. He just played catch yesterday. He's going to throw a bullpen session today. If that goes well, he's got a legitimate chance to pitch this weekend in London when the Phillies and the Mets go to play across the pond. We'll see. I mean, this is He's been so good that we all know there's regression coming, and you hate to say, well, it's going to be injury related. And, at this point in time, if Suarez is available, I think if he's active, you're going to sit Ranger Suarez. Yeah, I think I would on balance. They're flying across the ocean. They're in a new stadium, new surroundings. He's got a thumb issue. I think I'd sit him. Would I beat you up if you wanted to start him? No. We'll see what the report is today after the bullpen session. Maybe they give us some clarity there. I'd be reluctant to start him in this outing, but it's good news that he's back to throwing so quickly, and they're anticipating him at least having the ability to pitch this weekend. Clearly, they're not anticipating an injured list stint right now with one of the stars of the game at the moment on the hill and Ranger Suarez. A guy who's been a star on the hill forever, a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame, I think. I think we can all agree on that, right? Max Scherzer, who's got a thumb issue of his own. He threw a 2-inning simulated game yesterday. They had this thumb issue, nerve issue, shots, rest. Like they've been trying to figure this out. And I don't know. He threw 40 pitches yesterday. So, he's starting to ramp things up a little bit, given the fact that we've had this discussion with Scherzer. He was going to be back at the first week of June. Then it was maybe late May. We thought it was going to be July when the thing started. Like it's been all over the place. We know that. So right now we're hoping that he's going to make a minor league rehab assignment soon. If he does that, we're probably looking at 2, maybe 3 starts before he's activated. So it's very, very possible. In fact, I would say kind of likely he's back before the All-Star break. But we are much more on the original timeline than that timeline we had a month ago where we started getting really excited. We'll have to see how he reacts because, we didn't anticipate the thumb being an issue, and here it is. And to think after everything he's gone through in the back and the whole thing, that it's the thumb that's causing the issues, disappointing and obviously unforeseen. Cristian Javier is going to undergo Tommy John surgery just to clean that up. The Astros lose Javier and Urquidy for the season with injuries that require surgery. Spencer Arrighetti was on the hill last night against the Athletics. He took a ball off his leg, had to be removed after 3 innings. They don't think that's a long-term thing, but he couldn't finish the outing as we talked. I think it was even yesterday or maybe Monday. Arrighetti, Hunter Brown, who started to turn things around, are just necessities for an Astros team that just can't get healthy. What's in the water in Texas for these pitchers? But yeah, Cristian Javier done for the season. He's done for the start of next year because it's Tommy John surgery. He's probably looking at the second half of next season. Long time removed when he was a fantasy star. Tyler Mahle, who has been a very effective innings eater, strikeout guy. He's going to face live hitting today in his return from Tommy John surgery. This will be the first time he's faced hitters, so it's a big moment in his recovery. The 29-year-old right-hander is hoping, and if everything goes as planned, hoping to be available in the second half, at the start of the second half. Like he's throwing the live bat practice day. Give him a month. Could he be in this rotation for the Rangers right after the All-Star break? He could. And then it's a matter of, how does he feel? How's the ball coming out of his hand? All those kind of things. But Tyler Mahle's not someone that we've talked about this year at all, I don't think. Tyler Mahle, who has been on my teams, probably on your team, someone who I am very comfortable with when he's healthy as a starting pitcher. We might have the opportunity to see him on the hill in a month-ish. And that's good news for a guy coming back from surgery. We were a little bit concerned about Robert Gasser and where he was at physically. The good news with Gasser is that he had an MRI done. His elbow's okay. Everyone take a breath. His elbow's okay. All right. Not a blowout. We're not requiring surgery or anything like that. At this point in time, it's expected that his stay on the injured list for the elbow won't be long-term in duration. Do we know that for sure? We don't know that for sure. We don't know setbacks, blah, blah, blah. But for now, we can take a breath. No surgical intervention at this moment in time. So we'll see. We'll update this storyline as we go. This is one of those, it could be 2 weeks, it could be a month anyway, right? But it's not seasonal. So that's the good news with Robert Gasser. We'll continue to monitor things there. Jack Flaherty last night in the Elite Sports Game Time Show, again, is 8 to 10 Monday through Friday on Sirius XM. We were talking about this last night with Jack Flaherty. He's rolling through, he's pitching a good game. He's through 5 innings. Everything looks good. They started commenting. He was kind of stretching in the dugout. He gets removed from the game at like 60 pitches. And they're saying it's back tightness. They're saying that their expectation is that he will make his next start through the rotation for the Tigers. Let's hope that happens. I mean, he's been fantastic this season. As Justin and I talked about last night, The biggest change has been his ability to limit the walks. His walk rate right now is less than half of his career mark. It's outstanding. It's in the Max Fried zone. It's in the George Kirby, not really, but George Kirby zone. Like, it's fantastic right now. That's been a huge key. And with that, he's struck out a ton of guys too. He's got the best strikeout rate I think he's ever had. He's been fantastic. He has been fantastic. But he has had years with an inability to stay on the hill. Let's hope this is not the start of that this season. Unfortunately, I have to kind of think it is, because that's been his track record. But the good news with Jack Flaherty is the back is said to be okay. It's said to be tightness, and he is expected to make his next start. Edwin Diaz is going to start a minor league rehab assignment tomorrow for the Mets, coming back from his shoulder issue. He threw a bullpen yesterday. He felt fine. The hope is that he'll be back in about a week. So it looks like Diaz, it was just a 2-week kind of thing. That's the expectation right now. Hope that he'll be back in again active next week. He'll throw that minor league game tonight. We'll get radar gun readings, how is he feeling, all that kind of stuff to help us clear the picture up a little bit. But Edwin Diaz trending toward a very short stay on the injury list. And then we'll see if he can help stabilize a Mets bullpen that has been very, very messy and, in fact, kind of ugly in the early part of 2024. Andres Munoz, another closer, has been dealing with a back issue, I guess. And he had a home plate collision last night and tried to stay in the game after that. And he threw a couple pitches, just couldn't do it. So this has been something he's dealt with for a while. Munoz is another one of these guys who's tremendously talented, but he is somebody who's had a hard time staying healthy. And right now he's got the back issue. They're not saying doom and gloom, but we know how these things can go. He's going to get an MRI on Wednesday, which is today, to see if there's anything significant physically going on there. I think if you have Munoz, and a lot of us probably do, right? If you have Munoz, you have to be concerned that there is going to be an injured list stint coming up, because again, that's kind of his track record. If you're looking to give yourself some coverage there, Ryan Stanek is the guy who's been used as the primary setup man, so he'd be the guy that we return to. Let's not forget that Matt Brash and Gregory Santos were supposed to be right there with Munoz. Those guys haven't been seen this season because of injuries they're dealing with. So it's probably Ryan Stanek. So he's the guy that you should be targeting if you're a Munoz owner. And in fact, I think getting Stanek right now, if he's available, not a bad idea, especially for those of you that like to turn your rosters over on a frequent basis. Munoz might be fine, but something to consider. Finally, before we go to Armando Marsal and talk some football, one of the best pitching prospects in baseball, Cade Horton. Just an FYI there. Since we're talking about injuries with guys, we might as well talk about one with a minor league guy that could be a star one day. He's going to be shut down with a shoulder issue for the next 3 or 4 weeks. Ugh. So you hear that. I mean, that means he's basically shut down to the All-Star break. Then he's got to ramp things back up. And so he could make a couple of starts later in the year for the Cubs. They could bring him up to work out of the bullpen, depending upon how things go. But this setback is one that I think has to remove him from consideration of being someone that we can lean on and count on in the second half this year. Again, the timeline starts to get tight. The way they want to, protect him for the future is kind of tight. They've already got Ben Brown, who's ascending. They've got Jordan Wicks, who's coming back. They've moved Kyle Hendricks, have the Cubs to the bullpen. So just kind of an FYI. I don't think anyone really was, hopefully not really depending on Cade Horton this year. You were kind of hoping, right? Maybe he was going to be turned into Robert Gasser. You were hoping it was going to happen. But again, shut down for 3 to 4 weeks with the shoulder. Best case scenario, he starts throwing around the All-Star break. Worst case scenario, that gets extended and we don't see him at all at the big league level in 2024. So again, at this point in time, not expected to be anything catastrophic. A mild shoulder strain is kind of what we're hearing, but it is something that's going to preclude him from showing up on a TV screen near you at the major league level in short order. So there was our discussion about baseball. We'll come back to your questions or comments. Leave those again here at youtube.com/@ElitePost Network or over on Facebook, Fantasy Guru, facebook.com/Fantasy Guru HQ. Leave those comments there. We'll get to those at the end. But we got some fun here we're going to start. And every week on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, we're going to have our guys on to talk some football here about a half hour into the show. Fridays will be Russell Clay. Thursdays will be Tyler Beaker. And Wednesdays will be Armando Marsal. It's quarterback week. It's a Wednesday. What does that mean? That means we're getting our guy, Armando Marsal, on. Here he is, Armando Marsal. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing good, Ray. Thank you for having me on, man. Looking forward to talking some quarterbacks here with you today.
You got it. Look how big we are.
Yeah.
So is that big? Or do they make us a little small?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I like
my head looks
too
too big. My head looks too big. I don't really have that big of a head. At least I don't think I do.
I kind of have. I like to say my brain is big. So if anyone says my head is big, that's the reason. But yeah, I wear like a 7 3/8 hat. Do you know what size?
I think I'm the same exact size.
Okay.
So
we both have the same size brain. That's good.
There you go.
Yeah.
Big, great minds, big minds think alike.
Big and happy people. Hopefully today. Appreciate you joining us, and you're going to be on every Wednesday.
Yep.
And obviously Armando's part of the crew that covers basketball for us. That season's almost over. He's knee deep in football right now. He's in Discord answering questions, writing articles, doing drafts, all these kind of things. It's hopping. And I know it's June, and for some people, they're like, oh, guys, come on. It's popping. Our Discord room is on fire, and it's especially for dynasty leagues. It's been that way for a while. So we're going to start doing this. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, have about 20-minute talks with all you guys. And it is quarterback week. I figured we'd kind of really slow start this because a lot of people, if they're not in a dynasty or keeper league, Armando, maybe they didn't even pay attention to the draft, right? They're just kind of getting in. Oh, yeah, who signed with this team? Oh, yeah, Stephon Diggs is with the Texans, So we're going to kind of start with laying the groundwork here at the quarterback position. And, let's start out at the top. We got you on, the first guy to talk about quarterbacks. Is it Josh Allen or bust? Is he the clear-cut number one quarterback, or maybe not on your board?
I think yes, he's in the top tier. I think there's 3, maybe 4 quarterbacks you could put in that top tier. But yeah, he is in that top tier. I mean, he's been a top 2 quarterback fantasy-wise the last 4 seasons. He's finished 1, 2, 2, 1. Like, he's just that guy. His ability to run the football, what he does is really, he's a great passer. He's going to pass the ball, and he's also going to run. So that's really what gives that ceiling, that floor that he provides us. So yeah, I if you take him as the first quarterback off the board, I have nothing. I can't argue against that, right? I mean, he's done it now a couple of times in the last 4 seasons. So for me, I'm not taking the quarterback as early as he's going. But if you are, taking that first quarterback, and if you want it to be Josh Allen, I'm not going to argue against it. For me, it's still going to be Patrick Mahomes. I still have him as number 1. I know the numbers may not suggest that, but they've gotten some pieces there. And to me, he's just the clear-cut best quarterback in football. So he would be my number 1 guy.
We have a handful of elite quarterbacks that throw the ball very well, Patrick Mahomes. We've got a handful of elite quarterbacks that run and throw the ball, right? One of those guys being Josh Allen. Another one is Jalen Hurts. And I don't think Jalen Hurts is probably top 3 for everyone, maybe top 4. He might be number 1 for some people. Like, he's in the mix as an elite quarterback this year. Where do you value Jalen Hurts, Armando? And secondly, talk to us about the changes that have occurred with that Eagles team. They brought in Saquon Barkley in the backfield. They've lost some of the O-line. Is this going to be another 10 tush-push touchdowns with Jalen Hurts? Talk to us through this situation with the quarterback of the Eagles.
So he's a top 5 quarterback. I think it should be a top 5 quarterback in everyone's board, right? Given what he brings to the table. You mentioned it. I mean, when you look at some of these quarterbacks, a lot of them, Patrick Mahomes, he's not a runner, but he's a passer. But you have Josh Allen, who's a combination of both. Jalen Hurts, who's a combination of both. He's had double-digit rushing touchdowns 3 consecutive seasons. He's been, a top quarterback, a top 10 quarterback the last 3 seasons. He's coming off a career year as far as rushing touchdowns, right? He had 15 last year. He led all quarterbacks in red zone rush attempts. I think that role is going to remain very similar. I think he's going to be that guy that gets a lot of those kind of goal line opportunities. Whether he has regression or not at the touchdown department, coming off 15 rushing touchdowns, I think there should be some regression there. But again, if he has 10 rushing touchdowns, he's still going to be in a great position to be a top quarterback, right? And top fantasy quarterback. So for me, I'm not concerned. I'm okay with drafting him. If you're, again, going up at those elite quarterbacks, if you want to draft a quarterback pretty early, I'm okay with taking him. I think he's, because of that rushing upside, because of, what he brings to the table from that department, I think he's going to be an every week floor play with a massive ceiling. Do I have some concerns regarding the offensive line and the fact that they added Barkley? Yeah, you can have a little bit of concern, especially, when you add someone like Barkley and you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. Let's be honest, you don't want your quarterback rushing as much as Jalen Hurts does. Like, you do not want that, because long-term, that's not good for a quarterback. We've seen it was
Armando, you froze up on us. Armando, unfreeze. At least
did I freeze? Did I freeze? Am I not back? Oh, no.
Keep talking. Are we both back? We're both back. What happened there? Okay. Whoa, Armando. Hello.
You froze on me. I froze on you. I'm sorry. No,
it could have been me. I don't know. We're back now. So finish your thought on
so just to kind of finish that out. Look, I am a little bit concerned as far as maybe he doesn't get those 15 touchdowns. And a lot of people, and I don't like to look at last year and say, okay, I'm drafting because of last year. So I think things have changed. But I still think he's a candidate that can get you anywhere between 8 to 12 rushing touchdowns pretty easily because of his role. So, but I do think Barkley will take away some of those carries inside the red zone. Some of them, not all, but some.
You mentioned taking a quarterback early. Let me ask you that question, Armando, because people will ask, when do I take a quarterback? And, the answer depends. 2 QBs, super flex, what's your scoring system, all that kind of stuff. But let's assume a 12-team league, just a basic 12-team league with a quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex. So very traditional starting lineup. Ideally, when do you grab your quarterback? Does it matter how the rest of your team has come together? Is it, I'm getting my quarterback in the 4th round no matter what? Like, how do you handle the quarterback position in general?
Very situational for me. It depends on what my roster looks like, what my context is, the quarterbacks that are there at the time I'm picking, but normally I'm looking in that 6th round. Like we have a staff mock draft going on right now that's going to be hopefully posted soon, right? There has been some delays there on our end. But hopefully it's posted soon. And in that draft, I took my quarterback in the 6th round. And it's because, there's several quarterbacks that I like in that range. And if they fall to me, I'm going to go ahead and take one. Otherwise, if they're not there, I'm okay with waiting to that 9th to 10th round, because there's some other quarterbacks, and we're going to talk about, I don't want to, ruin the fun here, but we're going to talk about some of those quarterbacks coming up soon. And I view, 2 of these quarterbacks who are going in round 8, 9, 10 range as top 12 quarterbacks. So for me, if I miss out on someone like a Joe Burrows, who I'm very aggressively targeting in that round 6, because I feel like everyone's reacting to, the last season stuff, still view him as a top 5 quarterback. I think you're getting an elite player with, if everything falls into place as far as health is, and Higgins staying there, and, no issues with chasing, you got someone that can easily finish as a top 3 quarterback, right? So we're getting him in the 6th round. I think you're getting a discount because, again, recency bias because of last season. So I don't like taking a quarterback in the top 3 rounds, Ray. I prefer going that 6 or later. But again, it's really depending on the flow of the draft.
Armando Marsal and Ray Flowers here on Fantasy Sports Daily. Matthew Stafford. Now we're going to talk about a couple of quarterbacks that are veterans that don't run at all, right? So this is the different archetype than the guys we were just talking about. Matthew Stafford is someone who's going to get drafted as a QB2. Even though everyone says Puka Nacua is a wide receiver 1 and Cooper Kupp's a wide receiver 2. So it's fascinating. People projections like these 2 guys are going to go for, 2,800 yards and 20 touchdowns, but people aren't really interested in Matthew Stafford, which is kind of weird. Where are you at with Matthew Stafford? A veteran quarterback who can sling the ball in an offense that is usually very effective with the Rams.
I view him as a QB2, Ray. I do view him as a QB2. I'm not aggressively targeting Cooper Kupp nor Puka Nacua at their ADPs, if we're being 100%. And that's just because, a lot of factors play into this. But for me, I like the idea of taking someone like Stafford as your QB2 in a 2 quarterback league. And, if he ends up, flirting with that top 12, top 15, I'd be happy with that. I view him as a top 20 quarterback. I probably have him in that 16 to 18 range. That's kind of where I'm viewing him. So no, I'm not drafting. I wouldn't want him as my QB1 in a single quarterback league, but his super flex leagues, 2 quarterback leagues, I'm totally fine with him as a QB2. That's kind of where I have him here going into this season. It's just Cooper Kupp's health scares. I don't want to curse, but the hell out of me.
That's not cursing. That's fine.
Yeah. But that's a big concern there. And, obviously Higbee also, returning from injury, Kyron Wood. It's a lot of injury concerns with this offense. Everything has to fall into place, in my opinion, like perfectly for Stafford to flirt with that top 12. And at this stage of his career, I don't know if he's going to be that kind of quarterback.
If you believe what we've heard about this next quarterback, he was probably going to throw for 59 touchdowns last season and have the greatest season of all time. That's Aaron Rodgers. Because, of course, he went to New York, so clearly he's going to be the greatest quarterback of all time. Disastrous season, the Achilles. I don't think anyone particularly likes Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if you want to call him a liar or not, but he said he was going to be able to play in the season, and after the year admitted he couldn't run. Just the whole thing's a disaster. Everyone's I think made their mind up about Rodgers as a person and all that. But what about Rodgers as a player? He's 40 years old. He's got weapons. He definitely has weapons. He's definitely with the team that if he pulls his weight, this team could obviously make the playoffs and do some significant damage. Where is Aaron Rodgers in terms of his fantasy outlook? Again, an aging player coming off a significant injury. And though everyone says he's going to be fine, they also said he was going to be fine last year. We never saw him.
I view him as a QB2. I can't view him as a QB1. There's numerous reasons. He has a phenomenal supporting cast, going from the running back position to, the receiver position. Like, I even like the tight end. I think he's a very, Conklin's pretty solid tight end there. But you have a good defense. You have a good offensive line. You don't need to rely on Rodgers, right? All you need Rodgers to do is, number one, stay healthy, be on that field. I don't know if you've seen the videos. There's been some questionable videos as far as him actually running, and I'm doing quotes because it doesn't look like he's running, right? Like it looks like he's kind of limping his way to around. So for me, I don't think that he's going to have to throw a ton here. I have the Jets as a sleeper team, and it's because they have a phenomenal defense. They have a good offensive line. They have a great running back, and you have a veteran quarterback who can win you games. So I don't think from a fantasy standpoint he's gonna have a monster year. I think he's gonna be good enough to get this team wins and potentially win their division and things like that. But from a fantasy standpoint, QB2 for me, if he does anything better than that and you drafted him, hey, great. But for me, I'm not taking him as anything more than a QB2.
Would you take Stafford or Rodgers for that second quarterback if you're going to make that move? Again, two veteran quarterbacks. We talked about concerns. We talked about positives with both guys. Would you go Stafford or Rodgers, Armando?
I would go Stafford because Rodgers is coming off that injury, and I'm just concerned. Like, I'm really concerned about that. I was one that thought he was going to have a great season last year, I'll be honest. And I mean, I've watched very closely some of these videos. I've been reading the reports, and there's a lot of mixed stuff out there. But when you're physically looking at these videos and you're watching him, he just doesn't seem right, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong, but he just doesn't seem right. And it's still early, so but right now, if I'm drafting today, I'll take Stafford.
I assume you're going to take this next guy over both of them without question. I guess the question really is, where does he go? And that's Brock Purdy. There's been a lot of back and forth about Purdy. How much is it Purdy? How much is it his teammates? How much is it the system? Bottom line is the numbers last year were really good. And the question now, I think everyone's mind should be, is he going to be able to replicate those numbers? Is there even a chance he improves those numbers? Do you see regression? Talk us through the Brock Purdy situation, because as we saw last year, he is in a great position to have a lot of success in the fantasy game.
Yeah, look, there's no denying he has a great supporting cast, good offensive line, good team. He's in a great system. We know this Shanahan system has been fruitful from a fantasy standpoint for many years. It's one we target. This is why coaching is important, why systems are important, all of that stuff, because you got, Mr. Irrelevant coming in and finishing as a top 7 quarterback in fantasy last year. Yeah, he might not be the most talented quarterback. He might not be the most physically gifted quarterback that we have in the NFL. But I'll tell you this, he makes some really good throws. He has a good supporting cast, like I mentioned. I mean, you have Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. They just extended Christian McCaffrey there. Their best pass catcher at the end of the day. So I think he's a top 12 quarterback. I view him as a QB1. He's one that I kind of alluded to before. Like, he's going in round 9 right now in the underdog ADP, like going to 8-9 round. If I'm getting a Brock Purdy in round 8 or 9, I'm getting myself an every week starter, right? I think he provides you with a really safe floor. He might not have the rushing upside that some of these other quarterbacks possess, so therefore the ceiling is not as high, but you're getting someone that's going to give you plenty of fantasy points. Like last year, he averaged 21.4 fantasy points per game. If I'm getting that in round 8, 9, I'm very fine with that as my QB1. So I think he's going to be just fine. I like him a lot here going into the season. So for me, when you're investing in someone like Purdy, you're investing in a system and a coaching staff, and you're just investing in a great situation. So yeah, I'm on board with him, and for me, I'm okay with him as a QB1 in single quarterback leagues.
Purdy's from California, playing in California, last pick in the draft. Jared Goff is from California. He did play in California. He was the first pick in his draft. And I hate to say this because but he's 8 years into a career that if he does this another 8 years, there will be whispers about the Hall of Fame. Like, he'll be in that Matt Ryan zone, right? And it's like, oh, you look at the numbers and they don't pop off the screen, but really, don't they, Armando? I mean, he's thrown for 4,400 yards and 29 touchdowns each of the last 2 years. These are big numbers. We talk a lot about the rushing attack with the Lions, but they're really effective in the passing game. How would you compare and contrast those two guys, Purdy, who we just talked about, and Goff, who we're talking about now?
I view them both as top 12 quarterbacks. I've talked so much about this, as far as Jared Goff, I talked about on the Roster Coach live stream. I feel like he's overlooked. I feel like he's underrated. And I get it. Look, I think that too many people focus on the rushing ability of a quarterback and, he's a runner. And that's great. Yes, I understand why. But when you could just wait around and hang out, load up the rest of your team and get someone like a Goff in the 10th, 11th round as your QB1, I'm all in. Like, I'm all in. It's tough not to be all in, Ray, because it's just he's been a top 8 quarterbacks the last 2 seasons. This is a great offensive line that protects him. A lot of the thing with Jared Goff was if he's under pressure, he's not great. Okay, but they just have one of the best offensive lines in football. Like, they give him time. They buy him time. You have, and I don't want to be redundant with what I was just saying with Purdy, but they have a good supporting cast in Detroit. I mean, one of the best receivers, in my opinion, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have a young tight end who just, it's a position that takes time to develop, and we saw what he was capable of doing last season. A top tight end in fantasy in Sam Laporta. You have a great dual-headed monster there in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. It's a great setup. It's a great, and you have a lot of other pieces in the receiver position. Maybe no major stand-up, but a lot of other pieces there. So for me, look, they believe in him. The coaching staff has been supporting him since day one. They went and they got him. I'm in on Goff. I'm very in. I view him as a top 12 quarterback. Again, if I get him as my QB1 in a single quarterback league, I'd be very content because I know that the rest of my roster is going to be strong given where he's going in drafts and what I'm able to do before getting to someone like a Jared Goff.
Final question for you, Armando. This is a player who last season, and for those people that have forgotten, everyone got hurt at quarterback. Like, constantly, every week we were losing quarterbacks. And a guy that you added because you had no choice in Baker Mayfield ended up being very effective. Now, the question obviously is, what does the repeat look like? This guy's been around for a while. He's jumped around with teams. He's never lived up to expectations. Let's get rid of those and just deal with what we're dealing with now with him. What are the odds of him repeating what he did last season? Are you interested in him as a second quarterback? Are you passing on Baker Mayfield? Your thoughts, Armando?
So he finished his QB11 last year. I'm not expecting QB11 numbers this year, even top 12. I view him as a QB2. He's not going early, so there's not a lot of reaction as far as where, what he did last year compared to where he's going this year. So I don't hate him as a QB2 in a 2-quarterback league or a super flex league if you're waiting around for that second quarterback. But no, I'm not expecting a repeat season from Baker Mayfield. Like you mentioned, look, there was a lot of injuries. So therefore, you'll see some of these quarterbacks inside the top 10, 12 that maybe, shouldn't be there, right? So kind of how I view him. I think top 20, top 22 is kind of where I have him. That's the range I look at Baker Mayfield. But no, I don't want to draft him as a QB1 by any means. And even as a QB2, it really depends. And I have a 2-quarterback super flex article coming out, strategy and stuff like that. And it's going to talk about QB pairing. So it really depends on who you draft as your first quarterback as far as who I want as my QB2. And Baker Mayfield is very dependent on who my QB1 is as far as I want to pair him up or not with someone else. If I get a Goff, I probably won't pair him up with a Mayfield. I'd be looking for a little bit more upside, someone that gives me just a higher ceiling than Mayfield.
Armando Marsal joining us here on the show. He'll be joining us every Wednesday moving forward at 30 minutes into the show, roughly. You can follow him on Twitter, X, at Armando_Marsal. You can also head to fantasyguru.com, click that Elite Plus tab at the top where you find this show, Fantasy Sports Daily. You can find Armando's show there, Armando Marsal. Just click on that, and you can find all his previous shows there as well. As he mentioned, he's working hard behind the scenes writing articles. He's got articles that are already available at fantasyguru.com. As you can see on the screen there, the full season product, we call it a draft guide, but the full season product is available for seasonal fantasy. He's in the Discord room answering questions. He's doing a little bit of everything. And Armando, we want to thank you for your time today. And again, encourage people to read your articles, listen to your show. Again, that Elite Plus tab at the top. Thanks for your time today, and we'll talk to you again in 7 days.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, everyone. Football season is back. Make sure you check out the draft guide if you haven't done so. Lots of content coming out. Ray, thank you so much for having me on. Looking forward to next week.
You got it, Armando. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you in 7 days. That is Armando Marsal. Click that subscribe now tab in the top right corner. And you can get his work, my work, the whole staff's work. And as he noted, it's a great product with a lot of things going on. We're very excited about what we have to offer. And we still have something to offer it's a big deal that we haven't announced yet. So that's coming too. We'll talk about that on the show when that comes up. All right, let's check out your comments here before we close things down at the end of the show today. Angelo says, hello. Typical Rob says, good morning, King. Hello, both of you. Mario says, yo, 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 yo. Mario. Chris D, morning. Angelo says, Bregman. Yeah, Bregman had a little bit of a setback last night. They don't anticipate him going on the injured list. They're going to run tests today to determine where he's at. He's been a very frustrating own this season, has Bregman, because obviously there's been mostly negativity around his performance. There have been periods of time where he's been great, very short periods of time. We'll see if Bregman can stay healthy. He was just starting to get hot again. Kind of bad timing there. Doug M says, morning, Ray and the FG family. Morning. Angelo back at us with Jared Jones looked pretty good last night. Jared Jones looked pretty good every night. Got to be honest, right? He has been one of the true breakout stars here in the first half of the season. Everyone talking about his teammate Paul Skeens. Jared Jones has been the guy who's been here longer, and he's been damn effective doing it. And it was great to see him have another successful outing last night. Rubby17, hang on to the 6th spot of my 10-team league, and I drafted Carroll in the first round. I don't even start him. Would you drop? You probably saw it if you didn't see Rubby. We had a breakdown of Carroll at the start of the show today. In a 10-team league, it kind of depends. I know it depends, what your outfield looks like. Do you start 3 outfielders or 5? Is it a head-to-head league? Is it a points league? Is it a 5x5 league? My general default position, with Carroll would be to hold Carroll. I'm gonna still try to do that, but there are scenarios where maybe, and this might be one of them, it's a head-to-head 10-team league with 3 outfield spots. You want to go pick up Ian Happ? I'm not going to say that's terrible. So I would, in my leagues, in any of my leagues, he would never be dropped, but I have 5 outfielder leagues and they're like 14, 15 team leagues. So they're very different. I would try to hold. Let's give him a little bit of time here. Let's also see what the team decides. If they continue to hit him down the order against lefties, if he's hitting 8th against lefties, we do have a significant problem. We can revisit that in a week or two. Angela says the Red Sox placed Chris Martin on the injured list, retroactive to June 2nd due to anxiety. Yeah, I saw that report. That was potentially going to happen. So thanks for the update. Their bullpen there in a little bit of flux. They're starting rotation, a little bit of flux too with the Red Sox. Mark Peterson, Bregman's in the lineup this afternoon. No, that's good news. I hadn't had a chance to look at the lineups, do that after the show. That's really good news, obviously, that they deemed him healthy enough to play. You're right. He is indeed batting second, facing Miles Mikolas today. So thank you. Good call, Mark. Appreciate that. And Angelo says thank you as well. So appreciate everybody. So thanks for listening today. We'll be back again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking to Tyler Beaker again tomorrow, about a half hour into the show. Do the baseball before that, the football, continue our discussion about quarterbacks. So stay tuned for that. Go to fantasyguru.com for all the articles, all the Discord, all the answers to all of your questions. Well, pretty much. Click the subscribe tab in the top right corner. You can get access to all of our products, including the fantasy football product that you see there at the bottom of the screen. We'll be back again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll be on with Jeff Manns on the Elite Sports Show 3 to 6 today on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. That's Eastern Standard Time. I'll then be on with Justin Fensterman tonight from 8 to 10 Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio and Elite Sports Game Time. In between that, working on some MLB bets, posting a Rays Ramblings piece, and answering your questions in Discord over at fantasyguru.com. So thanks for listening today. Appreciate it. I want to thank Armando Marsal as well. Tyler Beaker tomorrow joining us. Lots to do, lots to discuss, and lots of happiness to bring you, hopefully, with success in your fantasy endeavors in 2024. I'm Ray Flowers, and this has been Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by fantasyguru.com.